Have you ever had that feeling in your body, that quiet feeling that something was wrong? Not dramatic, not attention seeking, not made up, just wrong. And no matter how hard you try to explain it, no matter how many times you replayed your symptoms in your head, no matter how carefully you chose your words, it felt like the people you were supposed to trust the most looked straight through you. Like they heard you, but they didn't listen. Like they saw your face, but they didn't see your fear.
And that is one of the loneliest place a woman can be. Because when your body is changing, when your energy is disappearing, when the thing that used to feel easy suddenly feels hard, you don't just want answers. You want someone to tell you that you're not imagining it. You want someone to say, I believe you.
Right. This episode is for the women who knew something didn't feel right long before there was a diagnosis, long before there were labs, long before there was language for what she was living through. This is for the women who kept going while silently wondering what was happening to her. Welcome to Unhinged N Loud, where we say the quiet part out loud.
Where women's stories are not too much.
And where advocacy gets loud. Before there is a medical chart, before there is a diagnosis code, before there is a specialist, there is usually a whisper. And I think that's what people don't talk about enough. For so many women, illness doesn't arrive with some giant flashing warning sign. It creeps in. It changes things slowly, quietly, subtly. And because it happens little by little, you start adjusting before you even realize you're adjusting. You get more tired, so you sleep more. You feel foggy, so you drink more coffee. You start hurting, so you tell yourself maybe you slept wrong. You notice swelling, changes, pain, heaviness, dizziness, weakness, but you keep moving because life does not stop just because your body is trying to tell you something. And for a while, that whisper is easy to explain why.
That's the dangerous part. The beginning doesn't always look dramatic. From the outside, you still look like yourself. You may still be smiling. You may still be showing up. You may still be taking care of everybody else. But inside, something is shifting. And what makes this even harder is that women are taught to normalize suffering. We normalize exhausting. We normalize pushing through. We normalize pain. We normalize caring too much and then apologizing when we cannot carry more. So when symptoms start showing up, a lot of women don't think something is medically wrong. They think, I need to try harder. I need to rest more. I'm probably stressed. Maybe I'm just overwhelmed. Maybe it's just part of getting older. Maybe it's all in my head.
And I want you to pause right there because that's the sentence right there that has haunted so many women. Maybe it's all in my head. That sentence has stolen years from women. And not because they're weak, not because they were dramatic, but because when your symptoms don't make sense yet, and when people around you don't reflect urgency back to you, you start questioning your own reality. You start negotiating with your own body. You start saying, well, I made it through yesterday. Well, maybe tomorrow will be better. Well, maybe I'm overthinking it. Well, maybe I just need to calm down. But deep down, there's still that feeling, that wholly uncomfortable, persistent knowing something doesn't feel right.
And the truth is, your body often knows before your paperwork does. Your body knows before the chart catches up. Your body knows before anyone gives it a name. The first stage, that's early stage, that is what we're calling on the podcast the whisper phase. It's the phase where the symptoms are real, but the proof is still catching up. It's the phase where your life starts changing, but you don't yet have a sentence that explains why. It's the phrase where you're still functioning enough for people to underestimate what you're carrying.
And in the whisper phase, women often experience things like unusual fatigue that sleep doesn't fix, brain fog that makes simple things feel harder, body pain that comes and goes, swelling and inflammation that doesn't make sense, headaches, skin changes, digestive issues, heart racing, muscle weakness, joint pain, random flares that seem to disappear before anyone else can witness them. And that's another hard part. Sometimes your symptoms are not consistent enough to perform on command for other people. You know how bad it gets, but by the time the appointment comes, maybe today isn't your worst day. Maybe the swelling went down. Maybe the fever broke. Maybe your voice sounds stronger than you feel. And suddenly, you're trying to explain a storm on a sunny day.
That line right there is real. You're trying to explain a storm on a sunny day. And when people only judge your condition by how you look in one moment, they miss the whole story. That's why so many women start documenting, taking notes, tracking symptoms, paying attention to patterns. Because when your reality is beginning to question, you start gathering receipts. Not because you should have to prove your pain, but because too many women learn that if they don't document it, it gets dismissed.
And I want every woman listening to hear this. If something changed in your body and you knew it mattered, you were not being dramatic. If you sensed that your fatigue wasn't normal, you were not overreacting. If you kept saying, no, something feels off, that was not weakness. That was awareness. That was discernment. That was your body asking you to listen.
Now let's talk about what happens next. Because for a lot of women, the suffering is one thing. But the dismissal is a second injury. It's one thing to be sick, exhausted, inflamed, scared, confused. It is another thing entirely to finally gather the courage to ask for help and then leave feeling smaller when you arrive.
That is the part that stays with the people, not just the symptoms, the interaction, the tone, the facial expression, the rushed answer, the shrug, the way your pain gets translated into inconvenience. And for so many women, this is what it sounds like. Your labs look fine. You're probably just stressed. You need to relax. You're doing too much. You're anxious. You should get more sleep. Let's just watch it. It's probably nothing. You're too young for that. You look okay. And I need people to understand something. Being told it's probably nothing when you already feel your life changing is not comforting. It is destabilizing because now you leave with all the same symptoms plus self doubt.
Exactly. And this is where so many women begin to split in two. They're the version of them that knows what they're experiencing is real. And then there's the version of them that has been pressured to minimize it. So they start doing this exhausting mental dance. Maybe they're right, but I know how I feel. Maybe I'm stressed, but this doesn't feel like stress. Maybe I should stop talking about it, but I can't ignore what's happening. The conflict wears people down.
And for me, this conversation is personal because before my own journey, I worked in the ER. I saw things. I saw how quickly people can be brushed past. I saw how symptoms can get reduced. I saw how easy it is for people, especially women, to be categorized before they are fully heard. And then life has a way of bringing things in a full circle because later, when it becomes personal, when it's your body, when it's your fear, when it's your unanswered questions, you realize just how devastating dismissal can be. It does not just delay care, it changes your relationship with yourself.
And that's why we have to name this clearly. Because if we don't name it, women keep blaming themselves for what's happening to them. So here on Unhinged N Loud, we call this patterns, the medical gaslighting patterns. And it often looks like this. First, symptoms are minimized. Then they blame on stress or emotions. Then there's little curiosity to investigate deeper. Then the burden shifts to back to the patient to either keep pushing or go quiet. And some women go quiet, not because they're fine, because they're tired. Tired of repeating themselves, tired of being doubted, tired of feeling like every appointment becomes a performance where they have to prove they're worthy of being taken seriously.
That performance is exhausting. You rehearse before the appointment, You write down every symptom. You decide not to cry because you don't want to be called emotional. You try not to say too much because you don't want to be called dramatic. You try not to say too little because you don't want them to underestimate it. So now, on top of being sick, you're managing optics. You're trying to package your suffering in a way that will finally be believed. And that should never be the patient's job.
No, it shouldn't. And I think one of the most powerful parts is how isolating dismissals can be. Because when you don't have answer yet, it's hard enough. But when the professionals don't validate what you're feeling, then family and friends sometimes follow that lead. They may not mean to hurt you, but they say things like, well, your tests were normal. Maybe you just need a break. You've been stressed lately. You should stop worrying so much. And now you're carrying symptoms nobody can fully see and trying to explain pain nobody else can measure.
And little by little, you begin to grieve. You grieve the ease you used to have. You grieve the certainty. You grieve the version of yourself that could trust that if something went wrong, somebody would help. And I need women listening to know this too. If you cried after an appointment, that made sense. If you sat in a car in silence, that made sense. If you went home and Googled your symptoms at 2 a.m. because nobody gave you clarity, that made sense. You were trying to survive uncertainty. You were trying to hold onto yourself. For a lot of us, there comes a moment when something shifts. Maybe it's after another dismissive appointment. Maybe it's after another flare. Maybe it's after another day of saying, I can't keep doing this. And that's when the research starts. The late night research, the tabs open, the symptom searching, the medical terms, the lab ranges, the articles, the support groups, the stories from women who sound a little too much like you. That phase is messy. It's emotional. It can be overwhelming, but it also is the beginning of something powerful because that is often the moment a woman stops waiting to be handed answers and starts learning how to ask better questions.
And that's a huge turning point because there's a difference between panic searching and pattern recognition. At first, it may feel chaotic. You're trying to connect the dots. You're trying to understand terms you never heard before. You're looking at lab reports and wondering why normal doesn't match how terrible you feel. You're learning a new language because your life suddenly depends on understanding conversations you were never prepared to have.
And that part is so real. Nobody prepares you for how fast you have to become a student of your own body. Nobody prepares you for how quickly you'll need to understand blood work, inflammation markers, antibody symptoms, patterns, triggers, specialist types, medication language, side effects, flare cycles, and nobody tells you that this education often begins at the exact moment you are least resourced. You're already tired, already scared, already hurting, already confused, and still there you are, trying to learn, trying to make sense of it all, trying to become your own advocate because the safety net you thought was there has holes in it.
And that is why so many women become experts out of necessity. And not because they want to, because they had to. Because when your body is changing and your concerns are being minimized, information becomes survival. Understanding becomes power. Language becomes power. Documentation becomes power. Community becomes power.
And this is the point where I really want to honor what came out of my own journey. There were late nights, there was research, there was trying to understand labs and symptoms and what inflammation was really saying. There was trying to make sense of what I had seen and what I was experiencing. And from that place came something bigger than fear. It became a mission because once you realize how many women are having to do this in the dark, you can't unsee it. Once you realize how many women are suffering without language, without guidance, without support, it changes you.
And that moment we're naming patient advocacy awakening. It's the moment when a patient realizes I cannot afford to stay silent inside my own story. It's the moment when your fear starts turning into clarity. Not perfect clarity, not instant confidence, but enough clarity to say, I need to write this down. I need copies of my lab. I need to ask more questions. I need another opinion. I need to trust what I'm seeing. I need support from people who understand.
That awakening is powerful because it's not just about medicine, it's about identity. You start realizing that you are allowed to participate in your own care. You are allowed to ask why. You are allowed to ask what a number means. You are allowed to ask what else could explain your symptoms. You are allowed to say, I'm not comfortable leaving this unexplored. You are allowed to say, this is affecting my quality of life. You are allowed to say, I need this documented. You are allowed to say, I would like another opinion. And for a lot of women, that kind of self advocacy feels radical at first because they were trained to be agreeable before they were trained to be informed.
Say that again. Women are often trained to be agreeable before they are trained to be informed. So the moment they speak up firmly, the moment they ask follow-up questions, the moment they push for clarity, it can feel unfamiliar. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. It means you are stepping into your voice.
This is exactly why Unhinged N Loud exists. Not because we wanted another cute platform, not because we needed noise for the sake of noise, not because we wanted to talk just to talk. This was born from lived experience, from seeing dismissal, from feeling the weight of unanswered questions, from understanding what it means to have research your way toward your own survival, from knowing how lonely that journey can feel when nobody around you fully understands what your body is carrying. And for me personally, this mission runs deep. I know what it's like to witness how easily patients can be brushed aside. I know what it's like to have to dig for understanding. I know what it is like to realize how many women are being sent home with confusion instead of clarity. And also know what it's like to decide that pain will not be the end of the story.
And that's the heart of this platform. This is not just a podcast. This is a microphone for the women who have been interrupted, minimized, doubted, mislabeled, and left to piece things together by themselves. This is a place where women can learn, a place where women can find language, a place where women can hear stories that sound like their own, a place where women can be reminded that they are not the only one who has sat in the dark trying to understand what's happening to them.
And a part of this journey, part of this mission, came from that late night education work and that advocacy mindset that grew out of necessity. Trying to understand labs, trying to understand inflammation, trying to understand what the body was saying when it felt like nobody else was translating it clearly. And that experience planted something, a refusal to let other women feel as alone in this as so many of us have felt, a refusal to keep important information locked behind silence, a refusal to pretend that dismissal was normal, because too many women have been taught to quietly endure what should have been fully investigated.
And that is why our message is not just emotional, it's practical. We want women to feel seen, yes, but we also want women to feel equipped. We want them to learn how to pay attention to patterns, how to document symptoms, how to ask better questions, how to stop shrinking inside appointments, how to recognize dismissal, how to separate I'm being difficult from advocating for my health, because those are not the same thing.
And let me say this clearly. Being informed is not being difficult. Being persistent is not being dramatic. Asking questions is not disrespectful. Wanting answers is not attention seeking. Trusting your body is not irrational. Sometimes advocacy sounds calm. Sometimes advocacy sounds emotional. Sometimes advocacy sounds tired. Sometimes advocacy sounds like, I don't have all the words yet, but I know this is not normal. And all of that still counts.
Yes. And we also want this space to be a place for sisterhood, because education matters, but so does comfort. Sometimes what a woman needs most in the middle of the uncertainty is not another cold explanation. Sometimes she needs somebody to say, I believe you. I know this is hard. You are not weak. You're not lazy. You're not crazy. You're not failing.
You are navigating something real.
That kind of support can carry people until answers arrive.
So, to the women listening right now, this part is for you. Maybe you are at the very beginning. Maybe you're in that whisper phase and all you know is that your body does not feel like home right now. Maybe you are exhausted in a way that sleep does not fix. Maybe you are forgetting words, losing energy, hurting in places that are hard to explain, or carrying symptoms that come and go just enough to make you question yourself. Maybe you've already tried to tell somebody and they made you feel small. Maybe you've been told your labs are normal, so you're sitting there wondering why you feel anything but normal. Maybe you've cried in secret because you don't know how to explain how deep the frustration goes. And maybe you're scared. Scared that nobody will listen. Scared that there won't be answers. Scared that this will become your normal. Scared that you're disappearing inside a body you no longer recognize.
If that is you, we want you to hear us. You are not invisible here. You do not have to perform your pain here. You do not have to make it prettier here, or smaller, or more convenient, or easier for other people to digest. What you are feeling matters. What you are noticing matters. Your pattern matters. Your body is worth paying attention to.
And no, we are not here to replace your doctors, but we are here to help break the silence that keeps women disconnected from their own power. We are here to say that questions are allowed. We are here to say that your lived experience belongs in the conversation. We are here to say that if your symptoms are interfering with your life, that matters. We are here to say that informed women are not a threat. They are necessary.
And if all you can do right now is take one small step, let that step be this. Believe yourself, not blindly, not fearfully, but honestly. Believe that your body is giving you information. Believe that patterns are worth noticing. Believe that you deserve support while seeking clarity. Believe that unanswered does not mean unreal.
Episode 1 is called When Something Didn't Feel Right, because that is where so many journeys begin. Not with certainty, not with a clear diagnosis, not with a neat story, but with a feeling, a persistent knowing, a quiet inner voice saying, pay attention, something is changing. Do not ignore this.
And if that's where your journey starts too, we want you to know something. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're not alone. There is a whole community of women who know what it feels like to be searching for answers while still trying to survive everyday life.
This is why we're here, to educate, to advocate, to speak clearly, to create language, to build sisterhood, to help women feel less lost in the middle of the unknown.
And to remind you that your voice matters in your healthcare journey.
Your questions matter.
Your symptoms matter.
Your story matters.
And
your advocacy matters. This is Unhinged and Loud,
where women do not have to whisper through pain.
where we stop shrinking,
Start speaking,
and get loud.